All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Guess I have to turn the camera on and get ready to rock and roll. It is the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. Thank you for being here this morning. Oh man, it is the last of the Mark Thompson pre-recorded interviews today. This one today we have coming up is a shorty, but it is with a friend of the show, Shadoe Stevens. We'll check in with him and see what he's been up to and what projects he's got going on.
He's like the voice of the show, I feel like.
He is the voice of the Mark Thompson Show, absolutely.
It's weird to say that knowing that Mark has, obviously, a voice also.
It's true. Yeah. It's true, but Shadoe Stevens, come on.
An announcer for the announcer.
That's exactly right. And then at 11:30, just after 11:30 news, we'll welcome in David Catz, former federal prosecutor, of course, and great legal mind. We'll ask him all about politics. And then it's The Planet Stupid with Belinda Weymouth on the show today. So a really good show coming up. Before we get into it, if you could please click the like button while you're thinking of it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe as well. These things help us. It's free. And if you are inclined to help us monetarily, of course, Super Chat and Super Stickers are open, as is the Patreon and the PayPal information at themarkthompsonshow.com.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Oh, went to a movie last night, Albert. I haven't been to the theater in a while, and I have a couple rowers in my family. So my mom, my sister, my niece, and my daughter and myself, we all went to see Boys in the Boat. It was a good movie. I liked it.
Wow, yeah, look at you going to the movie theaters. There's a lot of it's a season, right? The season for movies. I feel like I still haven't seen the Wonka movie. There's that wrestling movie, Iron Claw. Basically everything that Michael Snyder's been talking about the past few Fridays, I still haven't watched. So I have I'm kind of backlogged. But how was did you enjoy the movie?
I did. It was kind of a typical sports movie, but in the theater was the entire North Bay rowing team. So it was kind of fun to be in the theater with a whole group of rowers that, knew all the ins and outs of rowing, and there was a lot of noise, a lot of oohs and ahs and all these things. So it was a good experience.
It wasn't like that. What was the Full House mom? Her rowing. Her kid was doing rowing at
No,
USC.
that was a fake rowing. That was take your picture in front of the boat, but don't really row to get into USC. Yeah, what was her name? Lori something.
I'm sure Hallmark. Someone in the chat will tell us.
So thank you for being here. We have this show, we have tomorrow's Friday show, then we're dark on Monday, and Mark is back officially on Tuesday. So we're coming to the end of this fill-in stint, and I just want to thank everyone for hanging with me and and spending your holidays with me on the Mark Thompson Show, and Albert and Tony as well. Albert, thanks for all your help and for getting us through all this. You're awesome.
Oh, no. I think it's Lori Loughlin.
Lori Loughlin. Thank you. See, these are the things I mean. This is what I mean. Okay, let's jump right into it, because I don't know if you guys saw this video, but Nikki Haley did this campaign stop in New Hampshire yesterday, and she's asked by this prospective voter.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What was the cause of the Civil War? Now, I don't know why this is a burning question someone has. It seems like that's pretty much settled. We don't necessarily need to bring that back up again. But okay, this guy did. And he says, what do you think the cause of the Civil War was? And for some reason, Nikki Haley tap dances around this question. And I mean, if you or I are asked what the cause of the Civil War is, what do we say? Slavery, right? I mean, it's obvious. It's just no bones about it.
Yeah, but one side wanted it, one side didn't want it anymore. So.
That's it. Done. It's history. We know history. Well, Nikki Haley can't bring herself to say slavery, and I don't understand why. Let's take a look at this whole interchange.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War? Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was?
What?
I'm sorry?
I'm not ready for president. I wanted to see your view on the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government. What do you want me to say about slavery? Next question.
But it's not the first time that she's made comments like this, Irina. In 2019, sacrifice and heritage, that kind of talk may work in a southern state like South Carolina, but will it work in New Hampshire?
See, this is what's complicated about Nikki Haley. She takes 3 steps forward and she'll take 5 back. And this is exactly why her candidacy suffers in moments. Just like in the 4th debate, it seemed like she hadn't brought the real version of who she was. What we saw in her answer, her inability to come out with the word slavery right away on its face, answer the question boldly, showed that she does the exact playbook that I have seen non-courageous Republican candidates take. They continue to say, well, I don't have to answer the question. What do you think is the answer? This is something I always advised against because it does come back to bite you. When you've shown a version of yourself that's authentic and courageous, and then you go another way, this is what's complicating, again, about Nikki Haley. We have to look at her for who she is. She's somebody that's caught up and serving as her own worst enemy right now. She's caught up in what she thinks she ought to be on most days to a Republican electorate.
What's interesting about this is Nikki Haley is technically a woman of color, right? She has a background. Her parents are Indian, right, from India. And so you would think that there wouldn't be racism at play here. And I don't know if that's the case. Last night, Mark and I were talking about, the little picture on the show before you click in, whether it should be about Trump, who was caught lying again, or whether it should be Nikki Haley. And I thought, well, we know who Trump is, right? We know he lies. We understand that. We get it. We all know. If Trump accuses someone else of something, pretty good odds that it's really Trump that has done the thing himself. We all get that now. But we don't really know Nikki Haley. We see her rising in the polls. Looks great to see a woman rising in the polls for a presidential race. But do we really know her? And so I thought it was important to put her picture on the thumbnail shot today, because I think we need to get to know her. Now, is she a better candidate than Ramaswamy or a DeSantis? Clearly Trump? Sure. Seems like it. But do we really know her as a candidate? And it's these moments that she shows us who she is. Why couldn't you say slavery? When asked, it's a weird question anyway, what's the cause of the Civil War? I think we've asked and answered that one through history. But okay, if you're presented with a question, I guess as a presidential candidate, you have to expect them all. So you answer it. Why wouldn't she answer that? It smacks of racism. I don't get it. And so it's these moments, I think, that are really, really important on the campaign trail. I love that the person who asked the question, when she tried to say, well, what do you think the cause of the Civil War is, said, I'm not running for president. And basically turned it back around after she turned it back around on him. But yeah, I think you don't say when asked that question.
And it's kind of, I don't want to say it was a dumb question.
It was a dumb question, but
it kind of felt like a dumb question.
You know what?
It had a simple answer too.
This is what you learn in reporting. You think sometimes you're asking the dumb question, or you're asking the obvious, and sometimes the answer will baffle you. And then it becomes the story, as is this, right? But what does she say? She says, what do you want me to say about slavery? Next question. Really? That's your answer. It's a shocker to me. So we've got a snippet of Nikki Haley. Now we get to know who she is. You guys want to vote for her? If it was just this one thing, I'd be like, maybe she had a bad night. I don't know. But remember when there was another clip of her, and she was at a town hall, and she was asked about late term abortion. And she gave this answer that was just so full of untruths. And I don't know if she really believes the crap she's spewing, but it was an obvious lie because we know that late term abortion only happens when it's an emergency, right? When the mother's life is at risk, when the fetus is going to be either die or born and struggle and have an awful time and then die a few hours later or whatnot. As Pete Buttigieg says, there's already a dresser with little onesies in it. This is a fetus that already has a name and is wanted at that late state. Obviously. I disagree with her on that too, and I thought her answer was horrible. So now I take these two things and I piece together a picture of who this person is. And I don't like her. And you know what the thing is? I kind of want to like her. I want to like a woman running for president. Do I like her better than the other Republican candidates? That's not saying much, is it? No. All right, let's move to this. This is Boebert, Lauren Boebert. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
I almost hate to mention her because I find her to be insignificant. She's kind of like a gnat you have to swat away. But here she is.
She trends on Twitter for a little bit, and then for some crazy video like that musical. Was that her?
Yes, she was where she was fondling her partner in public, and then got all belligerent about it. Yeah, that's a high class congressperson there. Well, now she says there's no way she can win in her current congressional district. She almost didn't win last time. And so she's decided to pick up her toys and move to a different congressional district where she can win. She's leaving the 3rd and moving to the 4th. She said it's the right move for me personally, and it's the right move for those who support our conservative movement. Okay. She is announcing her switch on Facebook. She says she will not allow dark money directed at destroying me personally to steal this seat. Well, okay. Here's the question I have, and maybe I'll ask David Catz about this, but I thought maybe this isn't the same in every state. I thought you had to live in the district where you represent the voters. Maybe not. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. But in her current district, her rival, the Democrat, Adam Frisch, has raised almost $8 million since the beginning of the year, and she's raised about $2.5 million. So he is well above her in the money raised to run. She only beat him by a very narrow margin back in 2020. So it was less than 600 votes. So she's scared. Now she's trying to move to a more conservative district. We'll see if that works. There's some AI election issues that I think we need to be aware of. A tsunami of misinformation, they say, is expected during the next election. It's the first election, 2024, where advanced AI tools that can produce very convincing fake photographs and fake videos will be, and this is deep fakes, will have or could have a potential impact. And I think that's important to note and say a lot because we have to be very, very aware of it. And when we're looking online and when we're looking at YouTube and when we're looking at Facebook and wherever else people are looking on the internet to get their news, verify the source. Is it from a legitimate news source? You know, if there's something a little hinky about it, don't believe it. Even if it looks real, question. It's hard. Because
I mean, those videos are kind of funny, Kim. So you just have to be smart enough to know that it's a fake and it's like a parody.
I think so. Well, I think in some cases it won't be a parody. I think in some cases that it will be legitimate, legitimately that people will be trying to confuse voters. And we know that we have now multiple countries trying to get involved in online schemes to sway elections. And so, yeah, They say this is the first election where all of these advanced AI tools could really come into play, and that could worsen the election. And of course, we know that because Elon Musk took over Twitter, X, now we have even more lax safeguards when it comes to someone watching what's being posted on their site. He kind of lets everything flow on in.
He has been doing a better job of having like it being reviewed. So usually you'll see some notes for something that's kind of fake, and then somebody's reviewed it. There's a review team that you could sign up for, and then it says like, oh yeah, this video is incorrect, or the information is incorrect about blah blah blah. So hopefully those will be attached to those AI videos.
So here's what I understand though, Albert. Isn't he making it easier if you pay money and have this verified check mark that you can then post things that are, if you're a verified person, that you can create public accounts for fake for officials that are fake?
I mean, I think if you pay for that, you get the green check or the blue check mark, right? So
right.
I mean,
And
it could
you could
to
be
the
anybody.
eye, yeah, it could to the eye be unofficial, but that's why you have to go check the account if it's real.
And I think we
You
just
see a
need
lot of journalists get bamboozled by that, and
absolutely.
they'll report something completely false.
No, we need to be really, really careful. All right, let's do a little stories from the sky. Get into it right now.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Hold on, I'm just looking for it. It's
I'm like,
here.
stories from the sky? I think we're going to do it.
Stories from the sky right now.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
All right, we begin with this unaccompanied 6-year-old put on the wrong Spirit Airlines flight. Oh no, this is not cool.
What?
This little boy was flying as an unaccompanied minor to visit his grandmother in Florida in Fort Myers, and he was instead put on a plane to Orlando.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Spirit Airlines apologizing to the family, saying the child was supposed to fly from Philadelphia to Southwest Florida International Airport in Fort Myers. Instead, the child was incorrectly boarded on a plane to Orlando. They do say the child was always under the supervision and the care of a Spirit team member, and that as soon as they discovered the error, they took immediate steps to communicate with the family and reconnect them. But the grandmother says she got a call from her grandson after he landed in Orlando, and they had to drive about 160 miles to go get him. The airline offered to reimburse them for the drive, but the grandmother wants to know why this happened. So the airline's like, my bad, I'm sorry.
Did you really just do that?
Here's how the mistake happened. Here's where our process failed. They didn't say that. No. This is a crazy story. A cracked window or windows on an airplane, they went unnoticed. This plane took off from London Stansted Airport last month with 4 damaged window panes. 2 were missing, according to passengers. 9 passengers and 11 crew members were aboard this plane that was leaving London or London Stansted Airport, and it was bound for, again, Orlando International Airport in Florida.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
They say the damage was caused by high-powered lights used during a filming event the previous day. The aircraft, before anybody noticed this, got up to 14,000 feet by the time it was turned around. It landed safely back at the Stansted Airport, but they realized when there was increased cabin noise that something was wrong. That's pretty scary. They said it was noisier and colder, the passenger said, than they were used to. Yeah, that's a hint. Something's going on here. They also
someone cracked the windows open on a flight. That's crazy. It's
no.
That seems really annoying. Like just on the noise.
Well, it's dangerous because it's cabin pressure, right? So I don't know if the window ends up cracking and there's a hole to the outside. Does that mean that things start getting sucked out through the window? I don't know what happens. I think it's a dangerous situation. So people were saying they walked back toward the rear of the aircraft and spotted a cabin window on the left side with a window seal that was flapping in the airflow. No, loud enough to damage your hearing. That's how bad it was. And so then they had to go back and tell the flight commander were no abnormal indications that the crew opted to stop the plane's ascent at 14,000 feet and reduce airspeed while the window was inspected by an engineer and a third pilot. And that's when they realized we got to turn this plane around. Yeah. The full extent of the damage that were 4 windows that were at risk wasn't understood until they were back on the ground. That's pretty scary. They were up in the air 36 minutes with that going on. No. Somebody needs to check these things ahead of time. How about this one? This is a very first time that we had an autonomous plane. This cargo plane flew with no pilot aboard at all. That's the first. Never seen anything like this. Yep.
There's never been anything like this.
It was a 12-minute flight. So it was a shorty, a test. But for the first time, no pilot aboard. The flight departed from Hollister Airport here in Northern California. It was operated by Reliable Robotics. They've been working on a semi-automated flying system where the plane is controlled remotely from a pilot on the ground. I don't know. If you're going to spend the time to control the plane on the ground, why don't you just get aboard? I don't know. This it was a 50-mile flight that took place in November. The plane was a Cessna Caravan, so a small one, a single-engine aircraft. And they say they've made Cessna 3,000 of these planes. It's the most popular cargo plane. It's the workhorse of the aviation industry. But the challenge, they say, with this aircraft is it flies at lower altitudes and more adverse weather conditions than many large aircraft do today. So operating it, they say, is a little more dangerous. And automation, they say, will go a long way to improve the safety of the operation. I don't know. Makes me a little nervous. Not quite ready for remote planes. You know,
a lot could go wrong there.
Right? I mean, if we don't have remote cars or autonomous vehicles really, locked in and that technology figured out, maybe we should get that done on land before we start automating planes.
Yeah, we couldn't even get the cars in downtown San Francisco to work, and then that's already kind of gone. So I don't know. This is this thing randomly crashes out of nowhere, then it's a huge catastrophe. It's not just like causing a backup on Howard and
no. And what if somebody hacks into it? I mean, we've seen planes be used to do some serious damage before. I'm not comfortable. But doesn't matter what I think. The pilot certified to fly the aircraft is exactly like they were sitting in the cockpit. So they say this is not a video game. This is a real deal. They get visual feeds from the plane. The interface they use is closer to those used by air traffic controllers than drone pilots. No joystick. You don't have the ability to hand fly the plane remotely. They say there's no video feed that gives you real-time feedback, that the way they control the aircraft is by a menu of options. You can think of it like a choose-your-own-adventure based on where the aircraft is, and then there's a set of buttons to allow the pilot to redirect the plane somewhere else. I don't know.
There's just no accountability with like somebody being actually on the plane. Like obviously you value your own life, so you want to make sure the plane makes it from point A to point B. Yeah. But you're like in somewhere off in the distance. What if you get distracted? You're on your phone. You're not paying attention. There's a lot of things that like a lot of user error that could happen by not.
Well, they did it. I mean, you could say it's successful. They did this 12-minute pilotless flight. I hope this isn't the way of the future, though. Let's go to Singapore. This is a story where an airline passenger is being charged with theft after stealing about $23,000 worth of, stuff from other people aboard the plane. I don't know how you managed to steal that much and go undetected. Yeah. This happened on a flight from Vietnam. This 52-year-old Chinese national aboard a Scoot Airlines flight. I've never heard of that particular airline, Scoot. Happened on December 16th. The man was flying from Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam to Changi Airport in Singapore when he allegedly stole $23,260 combined from 3 passengers. While on the flight, he managed to steal all this money from a black backpack. The individual also allegedly took $1,500 from an envelope in a gray bag and more than $500 from another backpack on the plane. So he's facing
What
up
are
to
these people
3 years in
bringing,
jail.
with all this money?
I
Aren't you supposed to
know.
declare that money when you're
Yes.
going to a different
I
country?
don't know. Maybe they declared it. I don't know. Our cabin crew, they say, was alerted by a passenger to a suspected theft in the cabin and activated an airport police division. The involved passengers were escorted off the aircraft, and disembarkation proceeded as usual for the rest of our passengers. We advise our customers, safeguard your valuables at all time. If I have thousands of dollars in a backpack for whatever reason, I don't think I'm putting it in the overhead compartment. No, not doing that.
I wouldn't just walk around with thousands of dollars either, though, Ken.
No.
That's
I'm sure there are people. There was a woman in Petaluma, my town, who owns a donut shop, and they don't believe, because of their background and distrust of government officials, they don't believe in banks. So they kept all of their life savings in their home in a safe, and they were getting ready to retire. So they had a lot of money in the safe, and somebody knew about their aversion to banks, broke into their home a couple weeks ago and stole it all.
Man, that's tough.
Every living dollar they had. So the community put together a GoFundMe. They've raised, I don't know what it is now. When I last checked, it was more than $100,000 to help replace what this family had lost. So it's a lovely thing to see the community band together. But yeah, there are some people that just don't believe in banks and carry around everything they've got.
Gosh, tax season must be really fun for that family.
Man. All right, let's talk about this American Airlines flight that made a pretty crazy landing at London's Heathrow Airport. Wow. I don't know if there's video of this one or not, but I'm glad I wasn't aboard. Sometimes you kind of hold your breath when the plane lands. Yeah, this plane can be seen drifting as it approaches Heathrow, and the crew struggling to bring the plane to a safe landing. So here it is. They're kind of not coming in the way you want to come in. Going over the freeway, and this is where you can see it start to go a little wonky. Yeah, it starts going a little, bouncing back around. Yeah, up and down. Hey, it landed, okay? It looks like everybody's safe. Everything's okay. But yeah, that wasn't the smooth landing that you hope for. I don't know if there's applause. Maybe there's applause that you managed to get through that. I don't know.
That's more like you just breathe. You actually breathe when that happens. Sighs of relief.
This is a story from, let's watch it one more time. There's, bouncing around and boom. Oh, no. Yeah, that's not what you want to see. All right. Lastly, we have this story out of the East Bay. This California airport worker is set for life after winning the lottery. He won one of these scratcher tickets where it's a $20 million win. You get, it was a $30 ticket called Set for Life. He got to the second to last spot where you scratch it off, and the word life appeared on the ticket, which means he won the top prize. He sends a picture of his wife of this to his wife, like, did I really win this? I know. He said it was the biggest rush I've had in my life. He previously won $1,000 playing the California lottery. His whole thing is, he said he wants to buy his wife a house. So he wins this $20 million scratch-off lottery ticket. He's a California airport worker. Guess who doesn't have to work at the airport anymore? That's right, this guy. He works at a Bay. All we know is he worked at a Bay Area. Well, I say worked. He worked at a Bay Area airport, and he had purchased this scratch off ticket on his lunch break. And there it is. See that word life? That means you get the top prize. Love it. So somebody doesn't have to get up early and go to the airport.
I mean, I think I'd still work the airport job and just
no. You got $20 million. You're still working at the airport? I mean, maybe.
You gotta stay busy. I feel like we all dream of not having anything to do, but once we have nothing to do, we're actually kind of bored. So I think I'd keep the job.
I don't think you would, Albert. No. Maybe I don't. I mean, okay, perhaps. Unless you really hated the job. I mean, maybe if you love
Maybe
the
you get the
job.
flight benefits too. It must be nice too. You say you're still
Uh,
saving on the flights. Maybe.
if you have $20 million, I don't know if you care. I mean, that's okay. So maybe if you win the 20 million, how much of it do you pay in taxes? You know, I don't know. I don't know. Is that enough money to quit your job? 20 mil? You won that
It's a
money?
lot of money, but like just
Eh,
for just my life balance, I guess, Kim. I don't know. Maybe
you
I'll take
still
some
want to,
time off.
yeah, maybe travel a little, maybe go to part-time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just part time.
This has been Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
All right, let's do a little bit of news, and then we'll get to Shadoe Stevens. Shadoe sits down with Mark for a great interview, and that is coming right up.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. They are at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Speaking of airlines, more than 3,000 flights in the United States have been delayed and more than 40 canceled. The numbers coming from flight tracker Flight Aware as airports and roadways remain busy with holiday travelers returning home. More than 115 million people have traveled this holiday season. Officials from kibbutz, where an Israeli-American couple lives, say they were killed during the Hamas October 7th attack against Israel. It was originally believed that 72-year-old Gadi Haggai and his 70-year-old wife Judith Weinstein Haggai were kidnapped by Hamas, Israeli officials confirming the husband's death last week, and the kibbutz issued a statement today confirming the wife's death as well. So, sad situation there. As we mentioned at the top of the show, another GOP presidential candidate is having to clarify comments about slavery, or in this case, lack of comments. Nikki Haley saying in a radio interview today, she knows the Civil War was about slavery, despite not mentioning slavery in her response to a question about the cause of the Civil War during a town hall in New Hampshire yesterday. Florida governor and presidential candidate Ron DeSantis came under fire earlier this year for claiming that some Black people benefited by learning skills as slaves that they used after they were free. Wow. Convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh has a January 29th court date for his motion for a new trial. He accused a county court clerk of jury tampering. Murdaugh received a life sentence in March after he was convicted for the murder of his wife and son. Well, those who want to drink a toast with champagne grapes might not get to do that for much longer. There's a report from Silicon Valley startup Climate AI that says the grapes used in almost all champagne are just some of the hundreds upon the brink of extinction. The climate crisis being blamed for altering weather patterns in wine growing regions. Come on, we'll come up with a way to get our champagne. You can't keep us down. Oh no. The Colorado Republican Party wants former President Trump's name back on the state's 2024 primary ballot. The state GOP now filing an appeal to last week's Colorado Supreme Court ruling to remove Trump for violating the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause. The Michigan Supreme Court ruled yesterday that Trump can remain on that state's ballot. Doctors are reminding asthma patients the popular Flovent inhaler will no longer be available. Drug company GSK says it is replacing that brand with a generic version effective January 1st. The generic version will reportedly work exactly the same as Flovent, but patients need to be aware of the switch to avoid any issues. This woman whose murder plot against her mother inspired a TV miniseries is out on parole. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was released after serving 7 of her 10-year prison sentence for second-degree murder in the 2015 death of Dee Dee Blanchard. Her ex-boyfriend is serving a life sentence for that murder. And tonight marks the season finale of Thursday Night Football. Albert, Cleveland can clinch a playoff spot as the 10-5 Browns host the 6-9 New York Jets. The game kicks off at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. So
that's I'm not tuning into that one, Kim. No,
you're not loving your Thursday night football.
The Jets are awful. The Browns are surprisingly, they have a very good defense. They beat the Niners earlier this season, and they're surviving with a cast-off quarterback, which is pretty nice to see. So I feel good for the Cleveland fans.
Lastly, this group that's been pushing for Texas to secede from the Union is planning to sue the state's Republican Party after their proposition will be left off the primary ballot. The Texas Nationalist Movement submitted more than 130,000 signatures before the filing deadline. In a statement, the head of the Texas GOP says the names were not valid. So no soup for you, and you can't be on the ballot. This report sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee, the best coffee, according to Mark Thompson. I'm going to say it. I'm a believer. The best tea. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com sent me a big box full of teas. I've tried almost all of them, and they are all really good in their own way. You've heard me say this before, likely, but the mint teas, surprisingly so refreshing and good. Moroccan mint, ginger mint. Check them out, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. The teas are about $9.95 per bag, and they give you the little tea-making bags to do that with, because it's all loose leaf. Check them out. Enter Mark T at checkout to get your 10% off. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm Kim McAllister. Here comes Shadoe Stevens on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hold on. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
I was going to play a separate sweeper, but no, I'll go straight to Shadoe.
Alrighty.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about it for Shadoe Stevens, everybody? Come on, Hall of Famer. Look at you. Wow. What a year you're having. First of all, happy birthday. I know you just knocked over another birthday.
Yep. Yeah. You're only 97 once. God for yoga.
You know, our audience feels particularly connected to you because you're all over our show. You're the voice of our show. And so we, shall we just say, your victories, your plaudits are our victories and plaudits. So I was really excited to see you inducted into the Broadcast Hall of Fame. And was that in New York, was that ceremony?
It was in New York, yeah. And it was a terrific ceremony. It was like the big time. I worried because I didn't know, it's like, is it going to be kind of cheesy? You never know.
Yeah. Were you having to stand there next to the steam trays and get your award?
Thank you. Yeah,
no,
it was great. It was really well done, and I really like all the people that were nominated and are inducted. Just a terrific group. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
So give us a sense of the inductees, at least this year, in addition to yourself. Like, were these people from, just like what kind of work did they do?
Oh, well, they're from, all over the radio industry. John DeBella, an institution in Philadelphia. I'm trying to think.
These are personalities on the radio or broadcasters,
and
right?
Management. And Nina Totenberg.
Oh, sure. The NPR, she reports on the Supreme Court, I think, or the courts.
Yeah, and like I said, when I mentioned that I was inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame, Nina Totenberg, immediately my and I said this, on the at the lectern, that when I told my partner, who is an international corporate attorney from South Africa, he said, when I came to America, NPR was the whole thing, and Nina Totenberg was it. And then I tell my writing partner for Mental Radio, Joshua Weinstein, say, Nina Totenberg. He goes, I donated to NPR, and I have a Nina Totenbag. I went, badass. And of course, I agree. But yeah,
well,
great people, really great people.
That's a pretty strong field. Exactly. I mean, I could argue that, not to stir the pot, But I could argue that Shadoe Stevens should have been in this Radio Hall of Fame or Broadcast Hall of Fame. You should have been there a long time ago. I mean, you crushed it with, Casey Kasem had American Top 40. You took over American Top 40, which it's tough to follow Casey Kasem after all. And you exploded it. I mean, it became an absolute international sensation.
Million people a week for 7 years. It was remarkable. And they flew us around the world. It was really tough. We had to fly to Oslo and then, to Bangkok and then to, Hong Kong.
Yeah, the Shadoe Stevens life has been that kind of thing. He's like the James Bond of broadcasting, Kim.
It's hard. It's hard for a man out there in the world.
Yeah.
When you get inducted to the National Broadcast Hall of Fame, feat, by the way, that I will likely never know, do they give you a big portrait on the wall, like an exhibit in the National Broadcasting Hall? What does it look like?
It's pretty impressive, and the award is substantial. It's quite heavy and glass pyramid, and I wish I had it here. It's upstairs in a prominent place.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're showing it off.
Yeah,
but I have to say also that you could have stopped the Shadoe Stevens career back in the days where you were reinventing formats and promotion in radio in Los Angeles.
Well, that's what I said to them. I said, I can't, I'm actually shocked that I'm being nominated even to the, Radio Hall of Fame. I quit. At 24 years old, they made me program director of KRLA, and I threw myself into it and hired B. Mitchell Reed and brother John Radgren and wrote and produced 50 jingles that were performed by the Captain and Tennille and Kenny Loggins and a 30-piece Mormon Tabernacle choir. It was hilarious. We did these amazing things, and then they decided, with all the success we were having, that they knew better. And I knew that we would do things that I would then be blamed for when they failed. So I quit. And, I go I start K-Rock, and kind of the same thing happened. We just set the world on fire. This cutting edge, we discovered Queen. We were it was all about new music and all energy all the time, but we weren't being paid. And we were going bankrupt, and I quit. And then the whole staff quit. So then I bounce back and I go over to KMET and I do it again. And it's like it becomes #1 in 6 months. And it's B. Mitchell Reed and all of these great personalities, Jimmy Rabbit. And again, it's hugely successful. And then management decided that really what I needed to do is terminate this such and such, 3 really incredible people, including Brother John, who was one of the great talents in the history of radio. And I said, why? He said, "It's just not working out." What? No, you're just not working out. You're not going to be into you. So I quit. And I was heartbroken because radio meant everything to me. But I was out of radio for I went back to K-Rock and consulted for a period of years because I could sell my own time and keep all the money.
No, that's right. But by the way, that's no small thing. I mean, when you can sell your own time, that is the way to make the money. But it's funny. I think about that, and I keep saying broadcast, this Radio Hall of Fame. It's amazing as I'm just looking at the inductees. But the idea somehow that you could do what you did then. I mean, think about how elaborate everything you do, Shadoe, is top production, and then and inventive and clever, and you did all those Federated ads, et cetera. I mean, and of course you're an actor and sitcoms and et cetera. So you've done a lot of stuff, but just your radio stuff, I don't think it could be done today. I just don't think there's the money in radio in general.
No, there's not a chance it could be done. However, doing what we did with Federated, I would be a multimillionaire on TikTok.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
Because it was expensive to do. I mean, I had to have a team and everybody had to be paid, and it was week in and week out. We would do 6 or 8 television commercials a week for 6 years, 1,100 different commercials.
Wow.
I had my own production studio. I had my own post-production. I had all my cameras and lighting, and we would go, all right, we'd write on Monday. we'd get ready on Tuesday, we'd shoot on Wednesday, we'd edit on Thursday and turn them in on Friday. And we did that for 6 years. And no commercial ever ran longer than 10 days. So it was an assault of creativity, and it just went on and on and on. And if we had that kind of creativity going on TikTok, come on.
Yeah, you'd have. I mean, well, here's the thing, and I know this is like one long love fest, but I think you deserve it. I mean, you finally got this recognition, but just on the federated spots, each one had a hook. I mean, it was like it wasn't just like a big retail slam. Like I've read for and voiced a bunch of like Toyota ads where you just, I mean, there are 100 of them, but they're just like, and all month at Toyota, it's the Toyota Sell-a-thon or whatever. That's just like an in-your-face straight retail thing. The federated ads, Kim, they were really clever. They were story and characters and everything, and it all had to be done in the time of a commercial. So yeah, I think there would have been a virality to that would have taken over TikTok today. I agree with you.
Yep, but oh well, hey.
Well, it's not too shabby. You haven't done poorly. Hey, the other thing that I noticed is that your family, which is a beautiful family, of course. I mean, just, you and your wife are, like just.
You're all my wife. Let's face it. I mean, my daughters look like my wife, and my daughter's daughters look like my wife. Really good, although Amber does have my fingernails, which I.
Well,
it's perfect.
Speaking of that, they're in a Lincoln commercial. That's your family in this Lincoln commercial. Check this out, Kim. This is Shadoe's gorgeous family. Those are all people who are really in his family.
So who are all the people in the spot?
It's my daughter Amber and her husband Andrew West, and they're both actors, and their children are Ava, who's the older one, 5 years old, and Winnie, who's 2.
Oh, so cute.
Both just magical. It's hard to
Pretty
believe.
great to get the whole family cast that way. Is there a backstory there? They just contacted them, and the next thing you know, they were doing it, and now she's going to be driving a Lincoln, and she really likes the car, and it is a pretty terrific car. Well, there's nothing, what not to like? It's a high-end SUV, But hey, Shadoe Stevens, now that you've, gotten all these accolades and, your family is part of this spot that runs all the time, reminding us that our families are just drab and boring and driving some small vehicle to get from here to there. What's ahead in the new year? You have a project. You're taking mental radio to a live venue, is what you were telling me.
Well, we're trying. Will it happen? We don't know. However, 4 months ago, Gil Smith, who is the president of the Montalban Theater. The Montalban is at Hollywood and Vine, basically, and it's been there since the 1930s and under different names. And it's completely restored. It's almost 1,000 seats. It's gorgeous. And Gil has been running it for 20 years. And he called me and he said, one of the things that got me through COVID was listening to metal radio at night. I was sitting there in my house by myself, and I put on earphones and I would listen and I would feel uplifted. What do you think about doing as a live theater show? I said, you think we can do that? And he goes, I think we can. I just was spearheaded a show from Australia at the beginning of the year, and we sold, what do you say? It was a massive hit for 12 weeks. And they're taking it all over the country. He said, I think the same thing can happen for you because your stories are so interesting, funny, and have layers of meaning. And we can have giant screens and surround sound. They're putting in surround sound so we can really do the whole play of sound from the far left to the far right and circling around the theater, and giant screens with multi screens within screens or singular screens, and use that as another visual attribute. And so we started working on it, and I designed all the storyboards for the whole thing is written. It's a 2-hour 2-act play with live sing-along, and some of the songs are fantastic. Act 1 ends with, I'm eating pizza for the Lord. He's eating pizza. She's eating pizza. We're eating pizza for the Lord. Everybody, I'm eating pizza for the Lord.
That's terrific. It sounds very Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Sounds very South Park, you know.
I kind of idolize them, and it has a lot of humor like that in it, and Monty Python.
Oh, that's terrific. Oh, I really, I hope that comes together.
And live music, live singers, a New Orleans kind of second line style music with trombones and tubas and gospel chorus. Come on. How cool is that?
That would be just awesome. I mean, really, you know, I mean, plus the thing, Kim, you know, if you haven't heard Metal Radio, everybody is watching as well. It's just, there's just so much going on. And that's just the oral part, the AURAL part, you know, the part you can hear. The idea of kind of marrying all of that with live performance, spectacular. I mean, it really would be terrific. So
Amber and Andy play some of the characters in the show, and Amber we had a meeting yesterday and presenting it to this big producer, and she said, you know, we did a live read through 2 weeks ago, and all the actors were there, and they're all brilliant. I mean, Josh Robert Thompson is one of them, and a few people you might not know, but they're brilliant. And doing it live, doing it, you know, in person with the giant screen throbbing with this giant art going on in the background. She said, you know, I have listened to Metal Radio and it was almost too much. There's so much going on that I didn't grasp it all until I saw us doing it live. And she said, this is the exact right venue for people to experience the ideas and the stories that are part of Metal Radio. So she was really excited now. It was really nice.
I just saw a couple of the visuals and that you had that pushed along, and they're spectacular. So
yeah, I showed you that one of them is one of the stories is that it's a social club for the well-to-do who gloat and have lackeys, and it's called the Holier Than Thou. And the artwork is this Art Nouveau building with giant pink wings on either side of the door. It's fantastic.
Well, I want you to, if you would, grace us with a live rendition of the way we end every show, which is, I'm Shadoe Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. And then you take a beat, then you say, bye-bye. That's how we end every show. Yep. I'm Shadoe Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye. And I wonder if you would grace us to see you do it would be great.
I for the, let me see that.
So, yes.
I'm Shadoe Stevens.
Is this, he's thinking, Mark, I did it as a favor once to you. You really want me to do this on your little BS show? You're the voice of our little BS show. You know, our little BS show when we started was really a little BS show. Now it's really growing, Shadoe. And I give some of the credit to you. So,
and I'm your fan. I'm a fan of you for years, and I'm happy to be a part of this and love your team. You guys are terrific, and you've always been entertaining, and you've always been uplifting, and have a great sense of humor. That's all I ask in life.
Oh, that's so cool, pal. Well, we love you. I'm going to use the recorded version because I can tell I don't want to arm twist you on giving us a live version.
You mean like, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Shadoe Stevens. Bye-bye.
I love it. Come on. Shadoe, we love you. Thank you, pal. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame, and good luck in the new year.
Thank you. You too.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, it's the end of the year, and we reflect back on a year where we have begun this project, and now it's matured to a place that you have to be like a proud papa. You know, you're one of the big forces as part of this show.
Yeah, I set that bar pretty low, though, to be honest, and I think we've significantly surpassed that bar. So I think I might have to reflect on this new year.
Oh yeah,
how high that bar should be set.
You may bring the bar down even lower in the new year, is what you're saying? Yeah.
Albert, thank you.
We made it pretty tough for ourselves here, Mark. 18,000 subscribers, and who knows how many we'll have for next year.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because most people set a bar higher for themselves in the new year. They have those resolutions, so you'll show up earlier, focus harder, be more enterprising. Those are none of the things that really apply in your case, do they?
I mean, it's kind of depressing when you don't reach that bar. So when you actually do surpass that bar, it's a lot more encouraging person.
I see. So you're kind of emotionally cocooning yourself from any failure is what you're doing.
Exactly. I like to shield myself from the burdens of not
Albert, thank you.
Failing expectations. As a huge sports fan, we all have huge expectations, and I'd like to not be disappointed in myself like I am for my sports teams, Mark.
Albert, Happy New Year, and thanks for everything.
I'm Kim McAllister. Let's go to the news as we await David Catz. That is next on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's right. Here it is. On The Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. The post-holiday travel rush continues as many hit the roads or travel by air today. This according to FlightAware, more than 1,900 flights delayed, 40 canceled so far today. Meanwhile, AAA is recommending that drivers hit the road sooner rather than later. More and more vehicles start clogging the highways and byways later the afternoon wears on. Colorado Republicans are appealing this decision to ban former President Trump from the state's 2024 primary ballot. The Colorado Supreme Court ruling last week, Trump was ineligible because of his involvement in the 2021 U.S. Capitol riots. The news comes the same day the Michigan Supreme Court ruled Trump can remain on that state's ballot. Thousands of Palestinians are fleeing Israel's growing ground offensive in the southern and central parts of the Gaza Strip. Most of Gaza's population has been displaced. More than 500,000 people are currently facing starvation. Former Israeli military chief and current member of the war cabinet, Benny Gantz, saying yesterday that time is running out for a negotiated end to the fighting with Hamas. 2 Bay Area journalists are victorious in a lawsuit against the city of Oakland State Supreme Court, denying a review of a lower court ruling requiring the city to hand over documents related to an investigation of police who had sex with a teenage abuse victim. The story first coming to light in 2015 when one of the officers committed suicide and left behind a note implicating the others. 29 police officers and sheriff's deputies in all were involved in this scandal. The First District Court of Appeals said the Public Records Act must be interpreted broadly because it furthers the people's right of access. Crews have started to demolish a house where 4 University of Idaho students were murdered last year. Families of 2 victims urged the university to let that house stand through the trial of Brian Koberger in the event that it's needed as evidence. The prosecution and the defense say they don't need that house. Koberger's trial is expected to begin next summer. BART riders at the West Oakland station are seeing new fare gates that stand more than 7 feet tall. BART officials say they're designed to stop fare evaders. That ought to work. 7 feet? I don't know how you're going to get around that one. The gates are made of steel surrounds and clear swinging saloon-type doors, which, unlike the transit system's previous hip-high gates, make it more difficult and nearly impossible to just jump over or crawl under. BART officials say fare evaders cost the system up to $25 million a year. They're making a $90 million investment to replace more than 700 fare gates at 50 stations by the summer of 2025. Officials saying the gates will also increase safety and security, and that has also been a problem and a concern for BART passengers for some time. Look at those, Albert. I don't know. You can't really cheat that system.
No, I've seen my fair share. I took BART for like close to 7 years, I think. And that looks unavoidable. Like you can't, but I wouldn't be surprised if they found a new way. So,
a new way to get in. Yeah. New way to cheat the system. Something.
Like sneak in with somebody right behind them or something like that.
That's a significant expenditure, though. They're spending, what did they say? $90 million to replace 700 fare gates and put in these 7 feet tall ones.
I mean, the fare invaders are rampant too. So I don't know if they did the math on how much money they're losing on that, but it's justified for this. But we'll have to just see.
Okay, well, a look back at the top California stories in 2023. Atmospheric rivers, historic snowfall, flooding, all dominating the news for several weeks. The homeless crisis casting a shadow on California's image. Mass shootings in Monterey Park, Half Moon Bay, Trabuco Canyon, leaving 24 people dead. Hollywood writers and actors picketed for weeks, demanding pay and protection in line with changing technology. Several leading artificial intelligence companies call California home, but their leaders spend almost as much time in Washington, D.C., talking about the dangers of computers that can think for themselves. In other news, come January 1st, police officers can no longer ask a specific question during traffic stops. They can't walk right up to your window and say, "You know why I pulled you over?" And then hear your answer. A new law prohibits them from asking that. Governor Gavin Newsom signing this into law. From now on, an officer must announce why they pull you over. So they can't say, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" They have to say, "Good afternoon. I pulled you over for running this red light, going 10 miles over the speed limit," what have you. According to the law, the only time an explanation can be skipped is when it's necessary to protect the life or property from an imminent threat. So there you go. 2023 was a record year for political advertising. According to Ad Impact, a record $1.35 billion was spent on political ads this year. The political tracking firm says that early campaigns for the presidential primary resulted in an earlier than normal bump in overall election spending totals. And lastly, the Powerball jackpot is soaring. It's an estimated $760 million now up for grabs after there was no grand prize winner Wednesday night. The next drawing coming up on Saturday. That'd be a nice way to start off the new year with 760 million bones.
That'd be nice, if you like money, Kim.
Is that job quitting money, Albert?
Yeah, I think that's job quitting money.
Job quitting money. All right. Then he's on permanent vacation. Absolutely.
That's a start. I'll start my own business, kind of like I'll be my own boss, maybe.
You could even start your own airline. Whatever you want to do. This report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore, a beautiful place to go out and visit and check out the wines. You can find them at Tenuta Vineyards and 925-699-4576. We'll give you, I'll say we, Rich and Nancy will give you, how about that? 10% off if you say, "Smash it with your iron rod." I'm acting like I work out there, but you know what? I would. That would be a really fun job.
You get to with your iron rod.
You get to see that view every day. I'd be drinking up all the profits back there.
Yeah, taste tester. Yeah, taste tester is the way to go.
Don't hire me.
Put out the wine.
It didn't work out there. Yeah. So you say, "Smash it with your iron rod," the so-called phrase that pays. You get your 10% off. Make sure that you ask to taste the Mark Thompson Why Are You Yelling Red? It's one of my favorites. They also have the Mark Thompson white wine, Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson? Along with 28 varietals, 14 reds and 14 whites, and they're so, so nice. So check them out. Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. They've got a great website, and you can check out the winery in person, or again, call them on the phone and put your order in. 925-699-4576. Our thanks to Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, we are back into it, and I am excited to introduce David Catz. You know him as a former federal prosecutor, a defense lawyer in Los Angeles, but most recently, a media mogul, as it were. He's been on television, radio, on the internet, everywhere from Los Angeles to New York to London to here on the Mark Thompson Show, where we are lucky enough to have this incredibly brilliant legal mind every week. It's David Catz, everybody. Hey, how are you?
It's great to be with you. It's been an honor to have been invited on for these appearances and all this different media, but I'm not a mogul. I don't own any of the stations or programs.
You're a mogul to me. You're a mogul of your own media appearances. Okay, so let's jump right into it because the Colorado GOP is officially now appealing the Trump ban on the 2024 primary ballot in Colorado to the Supreme Court. Not unexpected, but any thoughts on what may play out during this appeal?
In the Colorado Supreme Court ruling?
Right. They're now appealing it to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, my video is going in and out, but it's not on your show. Thank goodness, right?
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, you're good.
Good. Well, the Colorado Supreme Court one was the one that was 4-3. It's not affected by the fact that Michigan went the other way. Michigan has a completely different law that its state court was interpreting. So this one really stands on its own, and he was barred from the ballot as an insurrectionist. And the timing is going to be difficult for him actually not to appear on the primary ballot for the Republican nomination in Colorado, because apparently the ballots have to be printed out in early January. But it's understood. I mean, my understanding of the ruling and how I've heard other commentators talk about it, my own legal analysis, is that if the Colorado Supreme Court doesn't hear from the U.S. Supreme Court by January 4th or 5th, that may change things. Everyone's expecting that there'll be a stay of the ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court that will say from January 4th until we decide this case, the Colorado Supreme Court has stayed. Or they might just summarily reverse it. I don't think that's likely. So I think the very most likely thing is that the ballots will go out with Trump's name on them. But there at least is a possibility that this will kick in for the time of the general election. And that even if Trump won the Republican nomination, he'd be barred from appearing on the ballot against Biden in the general election because he was found to be an insurrectionist after having been given a trial in the Colorado trial courts. It's also different from the cases where they say the person hasn't gotten due process, because Trump has, in my judgment, gotten due process in Colorado. He had a trial. He was allowed to put on his defense. All of his rights were observed. And after that trial, the judge decided that, yes, he participated in the insurrection and that the insurrection was of the type that the 14th Amendment mentions. So we'll have to wait and see, but there was certainly a stunning ruling. I don't think it's going to ultimately affect the election, in part because Colorado is a blue state. But certainly it would start a groundswell, I think, of similar rulings, even though the laws are different, Kim, in other states, because if this happens and the U.S. Supreme Court lets it happen, I think these other states will be emboldened. Their secretaries of state and their attorneys general will be emboldened in blue and purple states and make this kind of a motion with regard to the general election.
So we know the United States Supreme Court has never ruled on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment before. So this is we've never seen anything like this kind of moment. A couple of questions.
There's never been anything like this.
First of all, if there is a Supreme Court Justice David Catz on the bench, what's your ruling? What's your decision on this?
On the Colorado, on the Colorado Supreme Court case?
Yeah.
I know that it sets a bad example for other cases, but I think the insurrection was one of a kind. I think it was unique. I think it was the insurrection that the framers of the 14th Amendment were talking about. It was a marauding of the Capitol with the motive, and I think it was clear from the evidence, with activities done and incitement done by Trump so that the peaceful transfer of power would be impeded. So that there would be a riot instead of a counting of the votes, and that he would stay in office. And I think this goes to the absolute cornerstone of our democracy. We've always had a peaceful transition of power. Even Lincoln had an election during the Civil War, and he was ready, if that was the decision of the voters, to lose. And actually, there's an interesting footnote to history. Lincoln supposedly was going to resign right away and not wait for the 4 or 5 month inauguration period before he left, because he figured if it was the will of the people to stop fighting the Civil War and make peace with the southern states, that so be it. But of course, Lincoln won the election. But my point is that we had it. And this is so fundamental. And I know that it's a very smart thing to worry about other states, red states, trying to throw Biden or other Democrats off the ballot and say that they participated in, the Black Lives Matter demonstrations that went violent. Those amounted to an insurrection. And the simple answer is that try that case. See if giving someone due process, any court is upheld that finds that being soft on Black Lives Matter demonstrations or telling somebody, don't call the cops out, just let the demonstration go on and it turned violent. That is not an insurrection that bars you from the presidential ballot. Trump's was unique. I'd be one of the votes that said he can't appear on the ballot. And Colorado is a state, has a right to make that state decision. And I would deal with the next case where supposedly a red state threw a Democrat off the ballot by seeing, did that Democratic candidate get due process? And if they did, and it really was insurrection, it really was a violation of the 14th Amendment, then the Constitution's clear. And I think the textualists, the originalists, should agree with me, because the language of the 14th Amendment is very clear, except maybe on the issue of, is the president an officer? But that one I think is really absurd if you analysis. The law is not a suicide pact. The law is not an exercise in idiocy. If you come to an absurd result, that's probably not what the law really intended or what the writers of the law intended. How can the most powerful office in the federal government be the one office in the federal government that's not covered? How can the president not be an officer of the United States? Why is he getting Secret Service protection? Why is he living in this house that we finance if he's not an officer of the United States?
So I don't know if this is a stupid legal question or not, but I know when the Supreme Court makes a ruling, it's the law of the land. And so if they rule that Trump cannot be on the primary ballot in Colorado, or if, as you say, maybe it's just the primary ballot is coming too soon, so it's the actual ballot, for president. Does then, if they rule that he can't be on it, does it become, could you interpret the law of the land in all states, so that then could it be that he's not allowed on any ballot in any state, or is it still a state by state issue?
Our elections, even for president, are state by state. Mm-hmm. And each state has its own peculiar, some maybe idiosyncratic rules for getting on the ballot and challenging how a person is allowed to get on or stay on the ballot. And so really the Colorado law, because Colorado has its own unique laws, really wouldn't affect anything else in terms of whether it was due process under the laws of that state and the ultimate ruling. What I'm saying is just that it would encourage, if that was the result, that there was going to be a general election for president in Colorado without Trump's name on the ballot, the pressure on attorneys general in other states, especially in blue states and purple states, would be overwhelming. Why haven't you made those motions? Why haven't you pursued this more vigorously? And the lawyers would pursue it very vigorously to try to get Trump taken off the ballot on similar arguments, but they couldn't say Colorado did this. The U.S. Supreme Court is only going to affirm or not affirm or leave alone the ruling of a state. It's unusual that a state's rulings go up to the U.S. Supreme Court at all, and it has to be argued that there's some federal question. A state can do what a state wants to do unless it violates a federal law or the federal constitution. And so people need to bear that in mind, because it's so easy the way we drive across states. We have so much interstate commerce that we are still a collection of 50 states. The idea was, we're different countries, almost like, Spain and Germany and Austria before they all joined the economic union. Well, we joined ours, and of course, we have much closer bindings between the states than that federalist European Union does, right? We ended up binding much more together and being much more, in some ways, homogenous. But each state is, as they say, an experiment for what that state wants to do. And unless they're violating a federal law or the federal constitution, states can do what they want to do.
Let's move to, we're still talking about the January 6th, but Jack Smith, the special counsel, is trying to exclude what he calls baseless Trump claims and conspiracies from the January 6th trial. His quote is, "A bank robber can't defend himself by blaming the bank's security guard for failing to stop him." And so he doesn't want all these baseless things that Trump is saying, blaming political persecution, all these ridiculous things. He doesn't want them included. He's filed a motion to keep Trump from sharing these claims and conspiracies with the jury in his election trial. Does this go anywhere?
Yes, this will go somewhere because it's the obligation of the district judge in a federal case to make sure that justice is done according to the law. And part of the law is that you can't have arguments that don't go to the elements. There's elements of the offenses, and you have to prove, if you're the prosecutor, beyond a reasonable doubt, all the elements of the offense. And the defense can challenge anything that logically, relevantly goes to the defenses, but they can't just give a political speech. A lot of the stuff that Trump sends out is just junk. So let's take an example of they didn't defend the Capitol enough. Okay, they should have had more people. Maybe some of the people there were really Antifa. If he's got evidence that some people were Antifa, if he wants to call someone to the stand to say they were Antifa, or if he can present non-hearsay relevant evidence that somebody was Antifa. But just to make a broad argument, not based in fact, like, oh, there were so many Antifa people. No, you can't say that if you don't have evidence to support that. And it's improper to make an opening statement that suggests that if the lawyer doesn't have evidence that's going to back it up. And it's improper to make a closing argument where you say, we proved that these were all Antifa people, and that if Pelosi had sent more people, that would have quelled the riot. That's ridiculous. First of all, Pelosi didn't control the entire House and Senate. There was a Republican who controlled the Senate. What is it, McConnell? And there are all sorts of procedures how to get people there. That's not what this trial is about. This trial is about whether Trump incited it, right? Whether he did the other things that led up to it. The slates, come to Washington, it'll be wild. All the other things that he did. It's not a trial about, did somebody post, more people. Now, if there's a particular issue about posting somebody, you see what I mean? If it's a particular factual or legal issue, that's really relevant. But the kind of just general, broad brush, no evidence behind them. This is how I feel. This is the way I think the world is. It's full of conspiracies against me by Trump. This is properly kept out of this federal trial.
Let's move to, we mentioned it earlier, the Michigan Supreme Court. They are rejecting the insurrectionist ban case, and they're keeping Trump on their ballot, unlike Colorado, their primary ballot. And one of the reasons is because they said the state law doesn't give election officials any leeway to police the eligibility of presidential primary candidates. So in this case, they kicked it out because they couldn't figure out who is the person that makes the decision as to whether or not someone was involved in the insurrection. And so how would we know? So we're just going to put them on the ballot. Is that correct?
Well, I think it's more that they're saying that they don't have to reach this issue until they get to the general election. That you can run for the Republican nomination or the Democratic nomination, even though you were an insurrectionist barred by the 14th Amendment, even though you're only 22 years old, even though you're not native born in the United States. You could put such a person on there. And then if that person ends up winning and they want to be on the general election ballot, then there's an issue. Wait, can they be on the general election ballot? So I think all that Michigan said is they're not going to reach that issue until it's the general election ballot, because these are not qualifications to run in a primary. Okay, that's Michigan law as interpreted by their Supreme Court.
Okay, so I'm glad I asked because I was reading that differently. So I'm glad you clarified. There's a story also today about state officials talking to the Supreme Court. They want to be allowed to continue conversations with social media companies. So this is a case where it involves Facebook, Google, other social media platforms about concerns over content. California is one of several states that is urging the Supreme Court to allow them to communicate with these companies on the best practices to protect minors against online predators and everything else. Why wouldn't the states be allowed to communicate with the companies?
Kim, I got to tell you, I'm just not that familiar with that
okay.
case. So maybe we'll talk about that next week. Would that be
all
okay?
Right. Yeah, we'll move on. How about this case then? Let me throw this one at you. The New York Times is suing Microsoft over the use of their material with ChatGPT. They say, listen, Microsoft, you don't have permission to feed our articles into your ChatGPT system and allow the ChatGPT to then regurgitate everything. So the New York Times is suing Microsoft over this whole issue.
Well, it seems to me that this is going to depend on, a copyright law, that sort of thing. And as the New York Times does have a copyright, there's certain fair use, like a quotation out of the New York Times. You wouldn't think feeding the entire New York Times to become the artificial intelligence of these bots would be a fair use. Just kind of as it hits me, that seems like that's something that Microsoft would have to pay them for. And maybe there's some price that the New York Times would accept, but zero, which is apparently what they've gotten so far, bupkis, is not the price. So I think that one will go off on fairly technical issues, but in a way, it's an affirmation of the accuracy of the New York Times. What does Trump call it? The failing New York Times. I mean, I read the New York Times like I do everything else, with I always question everything, always ask, what about this? What about that? Why aren't they covering this as much? But I think the New York Times obviously is just a fine newspaper.
Yeah. There's a story out of San Francisco. I don't know if you've been following this, but I'm kind of fascinated by it. San Francisco is going to try to levy a tax on the owners of homes that are sitting vacant and empty. They want homes to be rented out. They've got a housing shortage, and apparently there are thousands of homes that are just sitting unoccupied in San Francisco. So this tax was approved last year by San Francisco voters on these thousands of vacant homes, but now there's a legal challenge by real estate groups. A judge declined to dismiss their lawsuit, so the empty homes tax is under a legal challenge now.
Well, it's not individual homes. So if you have a summer place in San Francisco, and that's basically what it is, and you're only there a month of the year, this is not going to tax you if you don't rent it out or make you rent it out. I think this is just 3 or more units, something like that.
Okay.
I see where the city is coming from. The city of San Francisco wants to have more housing and more affordable housing. And if, some company is, and I guess you can imagine a situation like this, Kim, they could rent pick any number. They could rent the unit out for $3,000 a month. But they'd really like to get $4,000 a month. So they'll keep it vacant until they can get closer to $4,000 a month. If the tax is $2,000, they have an incentive to just rent it out at $3,000, not to wait around to try to get $4,000. And so they would accept a lower rent rather than pay the tax. And so it will, from the landlord's point of view, it has to do with their this is the classic issue that we've always had when you have government regulation, that the government regulation tends to affect supply and demand in a way that affects price. And then whether you're the guy who owns the wheat, whether you're the guy who doesn't want to pay workers as much, whether you're the guy who wants to get more for your property by leaving it vacant and see if you can bring in more of a market price, you don't like the regulation because, it sets a minimum wage, it has a price support or a price check on wheat, or like in this situation, it makes it disadvantageous to not take a somewhat lower price and get the place rented rather than pay the tax. So we'll see how it comes out. I see why the judge didn't dismiss it. And I think it's going to depend on, this idea of takings. You can pretty much diminish the value of property. You can't reduce it to zero. Maybe you can't cut it in half, but you can certainly reduce the value of property by regulation. Did this one go too far or not? We'll see what the judge ultimately rules.
A new ruling just came out, and I didn't email you this one, but this is a federal judge that today has decided to uphold the Republican-drawn Georgia congressional map that safeguards the Republican dominance in the state of Georgia. This has been going back and forth for a while. The court says the General Assembly fully complied with the court order requiring the creation of a Black majority district in the regions of the state where vote dilution was found. So the court overrules the plaintiff's objections. This is the ruling from U.S. District Judge Steve Jones, in October, he ordered the Georgia General Assembly to draw new congressional and state legislative maps after the 2020 census, saying the state legislators improperly diluted the political power of Black voters. So here's a ruling coming out today that everything's okay and the Republicans can basically stay in power.
So this is a ruling by the appellate court that overturned the trial judge. Is that what you're saying? I'm not. As I say, when you spring these ones on me, I like.
No, at the last moment. I know it's a federal judge that it looks like the same judge in October told the Georgia Assembly, you can't do that. And so they made some changes, came back, and it still safeguards the Republican dominance in Georgia. But now he's saying it's okay. So.
Well, if there were particular issues that the judge raised and the legislature addressed them, then I guess it got approved. I mean, this case will probably go to the Court of Appeals, but it's conservative down there. You know, that's the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Yeah. By the way, I just did want to mention one thing about the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, because we've kind of been watching the former White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows. Remember, we've been watching that he claims that he shouldn't be prosecuted in the state courts of Georgia by Fani Willis, that he has a right, unlike the other defendants, to go to the federal court because everything he did was in the course and scope of his federal duties when he went down there to Georgia. They obviously there's two different views of what he went down there to Georgia to do, but the criminal view is that he went down there to tamper with the vote count and to interfere with a proper count of the vote in Georgia, when it was clear, by the way, at that time that Trump had lost and he'd lost the recount. He said he had a right to go to federal court because everything he did was in the course of his official duties. And the 11th Circuit conservative judges said, no, you have to go to the state court. And why that ruling is important, and again, it doesn't bind the Supreme Court, but it's important because, you know, that's what Trump is really arguing with presidential immunity. He's arguing everything that he did that's being charged in D.C. federal court against him. Everything he did was in the course and scope of being the president. And of course, the answer to that, and the reason why I think that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to reject this presidential immunity argument, or the D.C. Circuit will reject it and then the Supreme Court won't take it, is because what Trump is charged with is not within the course and scope of his duties. Think about it. There should be, even in my judgment, presidential immunity for if you decide to make peace with a foreign country or not. That's in the course and scope of your duties, okay? Right. And if people say, well, we shouldn't have made a deal with Israel, it really turned out terribly. Look how Netanyahu went so far to the right with the settlers. Look at all the terrible things that have happened since. That was a president's decision-making. Even if it was a rotten decision in the view of history, it was a president's decision. A president does have immunity, even once he or she has left office, to be prosecuted for that. But what Trump is charged with in D.C., all the way up to the insurrection itself on January 6th, the speeches that he gave, as I said before, the slates, the trying to jump Department of Justice official over all the others so he would sign a letter that it sure looked was like made phony claims. All of those were not things that were done in the course and scope. And Meadows illustrates that things done right up to the January 6th insurrection and right around then by these top officials in the White House. Here, the 11th Circuit saying, no, what you did was not in the course and scope. As a matter of law, what you did was not in the course and scope so that you have a right to be in federal court. At least you haven't shown that to us. And I think that's going to be what Trump's situation is, that when he's not going to be able to show, he wasn't able to show to the district judge that what he did was in the course and scope of his duties. It looked like it was what we call ultra vires. It was beyond the scope, beyond the pale. It was criminal conduct. And I gave the example the other day. It can't possibly be that you have presidential immunity for just crimes in general, for things that were not in the course and scope of your duty. Otherwise, one president could hit or even shoot the other president and say, I had immunity. I shot my rival for the office and I can't do anything about it because shooting your rival is not in the course and scope. And in my judgment, what Trump did and what he's being prosecuted for is not in the course and scope. And he tries to make this whole big jumble about it, and it just doesn't work except with his base, unfortunately.
But the Supreme Court says that has to go through the lower court rulings before this issue will get to them. Why don't they just come out and say what you just said?
Well, first of all, we do have a system, and the system is that you go to the appellate courts before you go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the appellate court in this case is moving it very fast. It was very frustrating and irksome when we watched you, me, and Pat Thurston, as we were watching all these cases when Trump was president. And, it took 2 years and 2 rounds of going to the Supreme Court, even to get the tax records from Trump. And so we saw those very, very long delays. But this is not one of those where Trump just kicks the can down the road, and it seems like time goes on forever. They're going to decide that. They're going to argument, I think, January 8th or 9th. The D.C. Circuit is going to have received the briefs and have an argument by January 9th. They could decide the case January 10th or 11th. Yeah. And at that point, it can go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will either take it then or not take it. But it shows signs of moving to the U.S. Supreme Court so quickly that I think it does. It's certainly arguable that the Supreme Court does not take cases directly out of the trial court and decide them boom like that. There was the famous U.S. Steel case during the Truman days. I think one of the Watergate cases. There are exceptional cases like that, but this case is moving plenty fast, Kim, without the U.S. Supreme Court jumping over the appellate level.
Have you been paying attention to the nominees that President Biden has put forth in the courts? Because I was reading this article yesterday about how the bench is really being affected by diversity, that the historic numbers of women, people of color, public defenders on the federal bench have increased over President Biden.
Well, I had the privilege to be a law clerk to a African-American judge. He was young, he was diverse, he was appointed by President Carter in 1979, and then I clerked for him almost right off the bat, like from 80 to the end of 81. And so having worked with a judge who was so diverse, and then in the same courthouse, we used to see Justice Ginsburg before she was a justice, when she was on the Court of Appeals. They were actually friends. She came to the unveiling of his portrait, things like that. So you look at two people who were very diverse, fairly young when they were put on the bench, and both of them were terrific. So I think, and you look at the justice that Biden put on the U.S. Supreme Court, Jackson, I think, she's been terrific. And just talking about other people who've been diverse, I mean, Kagan has seemed to be a tremendous justice. And so has Sotomayor, the first Latino Hispanic justice on the Supreme Court. So, my feeling is, that he's picked some really good people, and I don't have a problem. And he ran on those issues. He made it clear that he was going to appoint a diverse bench, and he did beat Trump by 7 million votes. The Electoral College has all these peculiarities. And we have these purple states. But remember, he won by over 7 million votes. So his agenda was popular. And I think people need to take a second look at Biden. I know he's not, young and vigorous, but look at the record. Look at what he's actually done. Look at the state of the economy. I think they're taking steps even right now about the border. They're down there speaking. Top officials from the White House are down there. The head of DHS, my old friend Ali Mayorkas, they're down there talking to the Mexican government. And obviously there needs to be a lot of diplomatic work, right, with the Mexican government to deal with this problem, because the people are coming. The huge problem is not people flying into airports and overstaying. The huge problem is people crossing this 2,000-mile border with Mexico and then being paroled into the United States. And that latter thing is debatable. And the amnesty threshold is debatable. And Biden has said he wants to work with the Republicans in Congress. So let's see if they want to work back with him and solve some of these problems, or whether they just want to, demagogue this issue and have Fox keep pointing its cameras at the border.
Yeah. David Catz, any big New Year's plans for you?
Well, I'm planning to spend, I was planning to spend the New Year right now. I'm in New York, actually. And I'm planning to be in New York a bit longer. And then I'll be in sunny Southern California. And, I have cases all around the country. I just got hired at a case, it looks like, in one of the southern states. So I've been to 38 different states, and maybe I'll go to 39 or 40 this year, depending. And how about your New Year's plans?
Oh, pretty quiet. We watch the ball drop on TV and have champagne on our couch. We're really exciting over here. Woohoo!
Well, that's lovely. And it's been great being with you. And I wish you all the best in the new year. You, Mark, all the crew there. I know you have different people on some days, so I don't want to say the wrong name. Who do you have with you today?
It's Albert today. Mm-hmm.
Albert, Happy New Year. And happy New Year to all of your
Yep.
viewers. And it's been great to be with you this year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, and good luck with all your cases. And we'll see you in 2024.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Thank you. David Catz, everybody. That's at David Catz Law. You'll find him there, and you'll find him on your TV screen, likely. He's all over the place. Again, I'm telling you, he's on New York media. He's in London on television and on radio there. Los Angeles, here on the Mark Thompson Show. He's everywhere. So Catsadamus continues his reign. Thank you to David Catz for being on the Mark Thompson Show. All right, let's do a little bit of news, and then it's the planet, stupid. But first, let's talk about what's going on in the world.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. The search for the next police chief in Oakland going to keep going. Mayor Sheng Tao yesterday rejected all 3 police chief finalists and asked for a new list from the police commission. Doesn't like the list she was given. The mayor's office not releasing the names of the 3 finalists. Oakland has been without a permanent police chief for nearly a year as crime in several categories has risen dramatically. Dozens of protesters are now facing charges for demonstrating near the Los Angeles International Airport. A group of about 40 pro-Palestinian supporters gathered at Century Boulevard late yesterday morning and blocked traffic into LAX. The protest shut down the street for more than a half hour before police were called in to arrest demonstrators. The LAPD claiming some of these demonstrators threw items at both the police and passing cars. Dozens of protesters were arrested and charged with rioting, at least one charged with the assault of a police officer. 2 police officers are recovering after they were exposed to suspected fentanyl in the city of San Ramon in the East Bay. The officers were called to a Safeway parking lot late Wednesday morning and found a person passed out inside of a vehicle along with numerous narcotics. 2 other people in the vehicle were ultimately arrested on multiple drug charges. 2 police officers later had to be hospitalized when they started feeling seriously sick. Authorities believe they were likely exposed to suspected fentanyl in that vehicle when they were conducting the arrests. In Pasadena, hotel workers are planning a strike right before the Rose Parade. Workers at 2 major Pasadena hotels will walk off the job this coming Sunday, one day before the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl game. The strike involving workers at the Hilton Pasadena and the Hyatt Place Pasadena, part of an ongoing labor dispute between those workers and management over pay, healthcare, and other issues as well. In Salinas, police are investigating an incident they say went from a child custody exchange to a case of attempted murder. Police say the 2 parents met at a local parking lot Christmas evening to do a child exchange when the father of the kids started arguing with the ex's new boyfriend. The father ending up stabbing the boyfriend in the abdomen, allegedly. That victim hospitalized and is expected to recover. The father's been arrested for attempted murder and child cruelty. He's now being held on $1 million bail. A Merry Christmas to them. A children's choir in Pasadena is preparing for the performance of a lifetime. St. Andrew's School Children's Choir has been tapped to sing for Pope Francis in Vatican City on New Year's Eve. The St. Andrew Choir will perform alongside the Sistine Chapel Choir. What an honor for them. Their conductor believes it's the first time that a choir from the United States has been asked to perform the Vespers of December 31st along with the Pope. Some business news now as well. Former President Donald Trump may have moved millions of dollars worth of crypto to Coinbase. According to Arkham Intelligence, an Ethereum wallet associated with Trump shifted $2.4 million to the San Francisco-based crypto exchange. That money is reported to be proceeds from the sale of non-fungible tokens, NFTs. A state-sponsored spyware attack is targeting iPhones owned by journalists in India. Amnesty International confirming what Apple warned about in October. The advocacy group concludes the Prime Minister's government used the Pegasus tool to spy on Indian journalists and opposition figures as well. A ban on sales of some Apple smartwatches is now being put on hold. A federal appeals court suspended the ban. Looks like they suspended the ban while it considers Apple's motion for a longer term pause during their appeals process. Apple stopped selling its Series 9 and Ultra 2 watches in response to an order that found a blood oxygen sensor in the device infringed on a patent. Can't do that? Nope. Pay raises coming for many in the new year. The minimum wage is going up in 22 states where nearly 10 million people will see their wages go up. On top of that, January 1st will also bring more than 3 dozen cities and counties increasing their minimum wages above state levels. Workers in California, New York, Hawaii account for 51% of those slated to get a bump in pay. So times are looking better for a lot of people who are making the bare minimum. An elderly woman is dead following a house fire in Oakland. Police ran out to a call on Partridge Avenue yesterday. They found this home engulfed in flames. A woman in her 90s found inside did not survive it. Authorities think this fire started in a wall furnace in a basement. It was deemed accidental in nature. San Rafael, speaking of fire, they're looking for a new fire chief. Darren White is announcing he's stepping down from that position to pursue new ways to make communities safer. His resignation goes into effect March 31st. They do have an acting chief, but again, the chief of the San Rafael Fire Department is stepping down. There's been a lot of controversy over the Donald Trump star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Thousands of people want that star removed. A petition calling on the Los Angeles City Council to withdraw the star has received more than 4,000 signatures. You'd think it would be more. Trump was awarded the star in 2007. It has been vandalized or destroyed several times since the 2016 election. A star has never been removed from the Walk of Fame, but council member Hugo Soto Martinez told the Los Angeles Times the council is actually now looking into what the issues may be and what the process from removing a star would actually look like.
And they could just do it, Kim. Just no one would notice. I think the 2 Dodger players who just got signed, the 2 Japanese players, got their walks of it, like their own stars. So
already,
yeah. So I'm hoping that it doesn't work out, and it's just like, wow, these are two players that didn't do anything for the Dodgers,
and there they are. You know, you have to pay for that. It's kind of a PR thing. If you pay, I think it's either $3,000 or $7,000. I forget, but if you pay the money, then you get your star. I mean, it's, come on. Speaking of popularity contests, though, Google is out with its top Googled athlete since you mentioned sports. NFL player Damar Hamlin was the most Googled athlete and overall person in 2023 after the Buffalo Bills defensive back collapsed on the field back in January. Remember that? Made a full recovery from that cardiac arrest on the field. The number 2 most Googled athlete was also a football player, but his spike in interest had to do with his moves on and off the field. It was Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce who took that spot after helping bring the Chiefs a Super Bowl win before going on to date pop megastar Taylor Swift.
They're not having the best of seasons, Kim. So I'm thinking the D word distraction might be thrown out soon because the Chiefs haven't been winning. So
well, Google is out with its report on the most Googled things in 2023. In addition to sports, when it came to actors, the most searched was Jeremy Renner. Remember, he was really badly injured last New Year's
snowplow,
Day.
right?
Right, with that snowplow accident. He also has recovered. Also, Jamie Foxx, who was hospitalized with an undisclosed medical issue this year, highly Googled. Country music star Jason Aldean, the #1 searched musician after he released his hit Try That in a Small Town, which gained widespread attention over the summer. The number 2 most Googled musician was rapper Ice Spice. I did not Google Ice Spice, but apparently a lot of people did. So I don't know.
She's very popular on the internet, Kim.
Oh, really? All right.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
lastly, former President Trump is denying claims now that he bullied his way into appearing in the 1992 film Home Alone 2. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the director of the film, Chris Columbus, begged him to make a cameo in the movie. The scene takes place in New York's Plaza Hotel, which Trump did own at that time. This comes after Columbus, in an interview, said he was only allowed to film in the plaza if Trump was given a scene in the movie, saying he bullied his way into that film. Trump this week said nothing could be further from the truth. Who do you
Home Alone
believe?
2 was a pretty good sequel, Kim. Usually
Yeah,
sequels don't really,
yes.
but it's really ironic too that he gets Home Alone again for the second
Mhm.
time, which is
Well,
Do you have a favorite holiday Christmas movie, Kim?
I like Elf. Elf is my favorite.
Elf is strong. Yeah.
What about you?
Probably Home Alone, or what was that one
Yeah.
with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Jingle All the Way.
I have
The
not
nine-
watched that one. Is that good? You like that
I
one?
think so. Yeah.
All right.
I think that's it's bad when I know it. It's on TV and I'll just watch it.
Okay.
But I'm sure. Yeah, Jingle All the Way. Yeah, 1996.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
one of my favorites.
All right, I'm gonna have to check it out. Now I have something to do this afternoon. All right, let's get to It's the Planet Stupid. I'm Kim McAllister.
I don't think she's here.
It's
yet,
okay
Kim.
because I can do it without her. So we're just
Oh,
gonna move right
perfect.
on. Yep. mhm.
Love that.
Yep. I'm Kim McAllister. It is the Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod. Use Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Is that what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing here?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody better weed?
100% effective, how about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
Yay! Let's get to It's the Planet Stupid. We get to it. We promise.
It's gonna get here right now.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet stupid.
No. It's the planet, stupid.
Well, we usually have Belinda Weymouth at this time, and she has not arrived, but I wanted to ask her about this story. So let's talk about it, because there's a group of older women who are suing Switzerland to demand climate action. They're taking the government to the European Court of Human Rights for doing too little, too late to attack the climate crisis. These women, who are mostly in their 70s, hiked up this mountain, clacking their hiking poles against the rocks. They say they knew the heat and strain were a threat to their health, and they were aware of the risks, but they did this kind of as a to call attention and awareness to what they're saying is this horrible thing that they feel like the country is not doing enough. They want to be on the front lines of the climate crisis to fight back. There are 2,400 members of this group. They say they live in one of the richest countries on earth, Switzerland. Due to their age, the youngest of them, 64, they say they will witness just a fraction of the extreme weather that their generation's children and grandchildren will see. But they are fighting back. These retirees, among those really duking it out with the government for a livable future. So they are suing the Swiss government in Europe's top court for violating their human rights with policies that they say do too little to stop the planet from baking. Their case could send shockwaves, according to this article at The Guardian, through the courts across the continent. And they're arguing two things: that heat waves are getting hotter as people burn fossil fuels, and that women, particularly older ones, are more likely to die when the temperatures rise. They say they thought Swiss politics was hopeless, but this is a very important lever that they're doing. And so they say that this is a very important thing for them. Yeah, there's some pictures from this article. The Swiss scientists have found the 0-degree line, the height at which temperatures drop below freezing, has hit its highest level yet. The National Weather Agency there issued heat warnings for most of the country. They've had serious weather alerts, and they say there that the heat waves are just getting started. So they're upset. There they are in their hike trying to call attention to this problem. So the group is called the Klimaseniorinnen. It's a strategic one. It was first proposed a decade ago by campaigners from Greenpeace, but this is specifically for climate change. It tackles this issue that has held back climate litigation across the world. They say the climate crisis hurts everyone. Rather than targeting a particular person or group, the courts would be overwhelmed if they admitted every case brought by individuals or big polluters. So they brought it with a big group of people, this 2,400 group of people, older women, that they'll argue that it's not just their right to life being violated by rising temperatures, but they are disproportionately affected by that. And that's true, because scientists across the world are showing that heat hurts women more than men, which is interesting because you would think that it would affect everyone. But old people more than young are affected, and that older women in Switzerland die at the highest rates from heat in the summer of 2022. They worked out that 60% of the deaths would have been avoided in a world without the climate crisis. They say our generation has done so much to destroy the climate. We have a responsibility, and it serves everyone if we can successfully make Switzerland do more. Will it work? I don't know. Is it too late? I mean, better something than nothing, I guess. I don't know. An expert at the University of Bern specializing in climate law are hopeful that what these women are doing could help kind of clinch or enshrine the milestones that for kickstarted government to make more stringent climate policy. But she said the chances that the Klimaseniorinnen, this group of 2,400 older women, will win this case, it's unlikely. So maybe it's just a PR stunt. I don't know, but we can hope. There they are. I like that they're doing something, a group of older women banding together to help change the world. And
it is beautiful out there.
It's so pretty. Absolutely. It's the planet, stupid.
More.
It's the planet, stupid.
No. It's the planet, stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here and being part of the show. I will tell you that coming up tomorrow, it's Friday on the Mark Thompson Show, which means Friday Fabulous Florida. So Albert will be hard at work trying to find me some gators. Michael Schur will be here as well. Michael Snyder will pop in on his rainbow and talk about the movie offerings on this New Year's holiday weekend. So we're going to have a great Friday show. Monday, the show is dark on New Year's Day. And then on Tuesday, Mark Thompson will return, and I'll be back to my tiny square. Hallelujah. So thank you so much. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, for being here with the show, and thank you for supporting us so much. The MarkThompsonShow.com is our website, and of course, that's where the Patreon link and the PayPal links are located. Thank you as well for supporting us in all the ways you do, not only super stickers and super chats, but for great conversations in the chat and the wonderful messages we receive. The Mark Thompson Show at Gmail is where you can reach out to us as well. And if you haven't seen the merchandise at themarkthompsonshow.com, you will find the link to that as well. So there's some great embroidered high quality sweatshirts and other things if you're a fan of the show.
Yeah, the pot holder is my favorite. The throw pillows also very
Absolutely.
strong. Yeah.
Great to start the new year with some new merch from the Mark Thompson Show. Absolutely. So we'll see you tomorrow.
For the Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, we will.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. See you on the After Party Live in just moments. Bye. Bye.